why, though, didn't I'm not sure if this comes up clearly enough in these two articles, but why didn't the criollos? I think this article does a really good job of talking about how the national identity was constructed for the criollos in Puerto Rico and in Cuba. Why didn't, when they were trying to think of things, okay, and so the push for this independence at this point of time in history, I think that it's in here, but a large part of the reason they were pushing for independence at this time is because Spain had lost most of its colonies, right? Spain had this amazing empire, all of Latin America, and a lot of the Caribbean, and by the middle of the 19th century, they had lost most of their empire. Most of the countries in Latin America, or all of the countries at that point in Latin America, were now independent. So they no longer belonged to Spain. So in terms of their wealth, Spain had lost a lot of its wealth. And where in the past they may not have been as strict and put as much in attempting to enforce a lot of the laws that they had in the Spanish Caribbean in terms of taxes and other ways of collecting revenue from the colonies, they now decided that they were going to enforce these things very heavily because they needed money. And so you can understand why the criollos suddenly, we're not going to go for this. We're not going to pay all of this. We're not going to, it's time for us. It's definitely time for us to claim our independence. So in fighting for freedom or for independence from Spain, they have to really, they understood that it was important for them to have a coherent sense of national identity so that they could rally people together so that they could fight. And when they try to come up with a sense of national identity, why do they create this idea of national identity the way that they do? Why? What is that national identity? They start to think of things, how are we different from the Spanish and why do we need our independence? They're not going to say it's just because we don't want to pay the taxes, right? That's the main reason, but how did they define themselves as being different and distinct from Spain?
Is this where the Jíbaro came in?
Yes. Okay. Very important because the Jíbaro remains for such a long time as such an important figure in Puerto Rican culture, right? I mean, yes, becomes this amazing icon of Puerto Rican-ness. And still, then it's interesting to think about how that's brought over to New York City by the Puerto Ricans who migrate, and we'll get to that very soon. But by next week, we'll start talking about Puerto Ricans in the U.S. and in New York City more so than. But I thought it was important to kind of set some of this up and have a little understanding of what's going on the island. So the Jíbaro is one.